Alright, reasonable wrestling fans, it's Kevin Hawk here, and it's a special time. What time, you might ask? Hammer time? No. Vader time? Could be. Rusev Day? Always. But this is Wrestlemania season, and I'm talking like filming this like 2 days before WrestleMania. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of The List. Not the List of Jericho, or the top 5 that we've done over on the Wrestling Rundown for many a moon. But this is going to be my personal top 10 list video, because YouTube likes top 10 lists. I see so many top 10 lists on YouTube that I think it's actually viral, and I've caught it. So, being we're in WrestleMania weekend, the very first episode of The List will be my top 10 WrestleMania matches. Number 10, from WrestleMania 31, Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins. It was a fantastic match. Had potentially the best, or at least one of the best, RKO catch finishes of all time. Not being biased because I was there, but that was fun. That made it better. No, really good match. It was fun to watch Randy beat up J&J Security and get that cool win over Seth Rollins. And it didn't hurt Seth, because then he would come back later that night and win the WWE Championship with the Money in the Bank. Number 9 would be a slightly controversial choice in The Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather. In my opinion, definitely the strongest celebrity match in WrestleMania history, if not potentially the history of WWE in general. Had a good build. They could not, for the life of them, get people to not like Floyd Mayweather going into this feud. So Big Show ended up having to be heel for the most part. And it had a finish that made sense, because if you get punched by a pro boxer wearing brass knuckles, it's probably going to knock you out. Number 8, from WrestleMania 22, Edge versus Mick Foley. Probably the best hardcore match in WrestleMania history, in my opinion. Closely followed by the Triple Threat Hardcore Championship match from WrestleMania 17. But an awesome match. This one had a fantastic build and told a fantastic story. Lita got involved. There was blood. There was fire. And there was all around awesomeness. And it's the match that I think legitimately solidified Edge, who had already once been champion, but it solidified him as a top heel. And really, I can kind of launched his gimmick into the next layer of success. Success layers. He moved up. Number 7 is the first ever tie on The List. From WrestleMania 9, which is widely considered one of the worst WrestleManias ever, Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka ties with Lex Luger versus Mr. Perfect. Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka was a fantastic opening match to WrestleMania 9, if you don't count the dark match. Shawn had Luna Vachon in his corner. Tatanka had Sensational Sherry. Great back and forth action. Good limb work from Shawn. And it went almost 20 minutes. It was like somewhere close to the 19-minute mark, which was ridiculous for the opener. But it was two young, hungry talents who really brought it in and put on one of the best matches on the card. And then I also picked Mr. Perfect versus Lex Luger because It's Mr. Perfect doing what Mr. Perfect does best, and that's getting quality matches out of subpar wrestlers at WrestleMania. He had to do it with Brutus Beefcake, he had to do it with Big Boss Man. No offense to Big Boss Man, but he got a WrestleMania quality match out of him at some point. And he did the same thing with Lex Luger, and that's very impressive because Lex Luger is not that great, especially when he's a heel. So kudos, and that ended. The end note of that had at WrestleMania 9 a backstage fight between Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels, so it all comes together. Number 6 from WrestleMania 22 as well, Mickie James versus Trish Stratus. This one goes on the list specifically because it's my favorite women's match in WrestleMania history. It was one of the most competitive looking women's matches, and it was another one of those ones that had a really, really good build and could have been a great match even if the title wasn't involved. Mickie James with a total stalker gimmick. It was fun, and it was kind of a shock finish with Mickie James winning, because you don't usually see a lot of people come up so quick and win their first WrestleMania outing against a very, very established person, unless you're Fandango. Number 5, WrestleMania 8 WWF Championship match between Ric Flair and Macho Man Randy Savage. Good build towards this match, a lot involving whether the fact Miss Elizabeth was ditching Randy for Ric Flair. So you had a very, very heated Macho Man, because that would have been a very, very touchy subject for him, storyline-wise or real-life-wise. They put together a fantastic match. A good portion of it is just nothing but Macho Man selling Ric Flair moves, which was great. Ric Flair with Mr. Perfect, they had so many methods to get all of the heat from the crowd. This match absolutely should have gone on as the main event instead of the Hulk Hogan versus Sid Vicious, or Sid Justice, or Psycho Sid, whatever they were calling him then. And not just because of the Papa Shango debacle. That match was just plain boring. But this was good, and it ended with Macho Man becoming the new champion and Ric Flair covered in blood, as so many of his high-profile matches do. Number 4, also from WrestleMania 8, Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. This is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. That goes without saying, because this is a list of my favorite WrestleMania matches. But this one was definitely up there. Could have been potentially number 1. It was great. Piper putting in a fantastic effort, although he was already, dare I say, past his wrestling prime. Bret Hart was Bret Hart. Rarely ever had a match that wasn't stellar. And so with that and more of the most inconspicuous blade jobs in WrestleMania history, they put together an epic which really didn't have any build until the promo that happened right before the match. So they did such a good job building tensions very fast. They got very violent. Both guys kind of broke out of their mold. You had Piper try and technical wrestle with Bret Hart, which was not Piper's forte. Then Bret getting kind of brawling with Roddy Piper, proving both men could hold their own in the other style. And then one of the most creative finishes that I had seen up in that point in my wrestling fandom life, with Bret Hart reversing the sleeper hold by walking up the turnbuckles and falling back onto Roddy Piper. Super cool. And then they walked out together because they're friends, or were friends, storyline friends. I don't know. Do you guys like each other in real life, Bret? Tell me. Probably. Number 3, WrestleMania 19, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Number 3. It was awesome. It was very special because Stone Cold essentially knew it was his last match going forward, and The Rock, essentially this was kind of his last big hurrah of being semi part-time / full-time guy. They killed it, as only they do, because they have some of the best chemistry together. They put on 3 epic WrestleMania matches with each other, and this one was special for me specifically because I was there for this one, and it was really good. They did great. Stone Cold, although slowing down because of his physical ailments, didn't harsh the match at all. The Rock carried his end great, and they had the best storytelling. All 3 of their matches could have been on this list, but I wanted to save room for someone else, so I only put the one I was there live for. Number 2, and I don't think anybody would doubt this. This would be on almost anybody's list. WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. Shawn took Undertaker to the limits. Undertaker almost died. So much stuff happened. It garnered a sequel just based off of how good it was. And this match was the first time I felt that The Undertaker was really in jeopardy of losing at WrestleMania. Now, albeit it's one of the first matches where Undertaker's undefeated streak became a very, very important component in his WrestleMania storylines, but this was the first time for sure that I felt, because it was somebody who'd also been wrestling for a long time with Shawn, and somebody who's known for doing the most high caliber matches at WrestleMania, and so it had so many great memorable that's a word now, rememberable moments in WrestleMania history. And that takes me to number 1, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart to open WrestleMania 10. An opening match on the list, and it was a great opening match. The second one on the list. Bret and Owen, of course, they were going to have good chemistry because they've been wrestling each other since they were children, probably. And it's the match that made Owen Hart finally seem like he could do better than just being in a tag team with somebody. It launched his singles career. It was the first of many awesome matches in his feud with Bret Hart, for singles pay-per-view matches, I should say. And Bret went on to win the championship later that night, despite losing because Owen Hart, knowing his brother's style and knowing his brother's moves, reversed a victory roll into a pin. It was a fantastic match. I loved it. Even though the guy who at the time I wasn't rooting for, the bad guy, wins the match, I didn't go, oh man, that sucks, Bret didn't win. I thought, man, that was a really, really good match. And I think that was one of the first turning points where I went from like being a fan of watching WWE to being a fan of watching pro wrestling. The storytelling aspect, all the little bits and pieces, not just what they want us to watch, essentially. So there you have it. There's the list. My top 10 WrestleMania matches. I hope you enjoyed it. If not, go away. Or come back for the next list. It'll be something different. Post down in the comments what your top 10 WrestleMania matches are. And, if I like the list that you put down, maybe I'll comment. Who knows? Life is strange. That's all from Kevin Hawk. That's all from Reasonable Wrestling Fans. Go check out our other channel, The Wrestling Rundown, and the rest of our videos here unboxings, punishment videos, and other videos that are loosely based around wrestling. And we'll see you next time.